Welcome back to another fantasy video with me, JD. Will you joining me for the round 22 review? Now, if you've already watched the Supercoach video, you'll be knowing that I am wearing this AFLW cap for a very special reason, and that is because the good friends at Free Kick AFLW are the official fantasy podcast now, and you should be checking them out with the season just around the corner. Some of their preseason games have started, and of course, we want more people playing that format because it's a lot of fun. We have a great little team that play in the our Discord server, so come jump in for the Fantasy Take TV AFLW channel. I think we had 4 top 10 finishes last year, so look, we'll hopefully do one better and win the car. But yeah, get around the podcast, listen to the team, come join us for some AFLW this year. All right, but let's have a look at this side because we're hoping to finish in the top 1,000 like we've just reached with Supercoach as well. Which would be decent given that we didn't start with Gorn, we didn't start with Bonner, 2 big misses this year. So to recover from that was all right, but honestly, didn't move up enough spots from last week. So what was I at? No, where was it? It was 1583 last week. Wait, was that right? Yeah, okay. I haven't moved any ranks this week. Nice. So I stayed exactly the same, which is actually pretty disappointing because, oh no, I've moved up 24 spots. But that's not enough movement. With 2 weeks to go, we need to move much bigger than that. And I think like the overall ideas I had in the side were right. I actually have jumped off a lot of the premiums that have continued to underperform. The problem is some of my uniques have equally underperformed, and that has made it very hard to actually make up any real ground despite doing things like getting off Dacos and Sarong. But when you've got Ed Richards, who's put up a 65, LDU's put up a 72, and these players are unique, this hurts a lot. So trades for last week were, it's not going to show, but we did Darcy Cameron up to Marshall, which was nice. It was a 30-something point gain. And then we did Nick Martin to Sinclair, which was like a 9-point loss. Decided that was a better trade than going Dowling to Philippou. And honestly, doing Dowling to Philippou would have netted me more points, funnily enough, than doing Nick Martin to Sinclair last week. So that's a little bit frustrating, but Sinclair's got, I think, another 2 nice games coming up, which is part of the reason that we jumped on him. So yeah. But yeah, that's a little bit sad. A little bit sad. And Ed Richards, oh my God, this is like so disappointing. 131, 114, and then I traded him in for 81 and 65. Shocker. And it's actually really now and these are 2 easy matchups. It's actually like pretty confusing about what to do. Do I hold him for this North one or do I trade him this week? So yeah, in the defense, like Whitfield finally had a down game for any non-owners, but if you're a non-owner, I think you've been blown away from everything that's happened post-buy. Like this is just a crazy run. Shiza was good. McKercher was very good. Yeah, for sure. Like still a great cheap option. Sinclair was good, and then Stewart was fine as well. Like really, no, actually wasn't that good. The problem was that Newman, who's been my target for ages but haven't been able to get in, was very good. So he's backed up. He's a good score last week with another good one. No, he wasn't that good. But the Freo boys were also good for anyone that's still been holding them. So Clark and Brian. So I feel like I definitely lost points in defense this week, which is a bit frustrating. In the midfield, we had but we traded out Dacos, which is nice. So yeah, Goulden was super disappointing. I mean, he's very highly owned, but still sad. And then Brayshaw, who's a little bit unique, disappointing. LDU, who's very unique, disappointing. The Port boys are somewhat like unique, and they scored okay. Trelaw's somewhat unique, and he didn't score very well. So like overall, this is a pretty unique midfield, I feel. But yeah, quite disappointing overall. And Rucks, like, yeah, this is like the 1-2 combo that you want. So I think Marshall's actually, Cherry's actually the most expensive in the game now, which is cool. He's up like over 500k for the year and his price at 1.1, which is pretty nuts. And he's 3 150s in a row, which is like only a couple have ever done it. And I think he's top scored fantasy 3 weeks in a row as well, which he might be the only player, at least in modern history, who've done that. So he's in ripping form at the moment, and has another like decent matchup in English this week, to be honest. So he honestly could go big again, which is pretty scary. And then in the forwards, so I mean, like Zorko, Flanders, Caldwell, Heaney, I feel like everyone has. So while there were some down games here, there's probably not a lot to discuss. Anyone that maybe like looped to Caldwell, I don't know why he would have, but like well done. Moore was like the clear fifth that we've been saying so for a while, and he finally had a really good game, and his last two home are nice as well. So if you don't have him, I think you should still be jumping on, but I think a lot of people have him as a fifth. And then really what happened for teams in the forward line, this was really around the sixth position. So a lot of people like had Simpkin and looped him at F7 and then decided the 76 not good enough, wanted to get Philippou. Philippou obviously laid out and they had to scramble from there. Now, in Discord, what I was saying was like a 76 isn't that bad. And honestly, like the replacements you're getting probably aren't that good. I would rather downgrade Dowling to like a 200k player or just leave it as Philippou rather than trade in some of these scuffed options. But yeah, like, because I think a lot of the scuffed options you then have to use another trade on this week. It's just not very good. So whether you banked cash or just held Philippou, I think was fine. If you did anything else, I'm a little bit sketched out. I mean, I'm sure there are some players that ended up scoring very well. But yeah, for anyone that might have had like something like a Myers or something instead, you probably did that pretty well this week over those that took a 76 or maybe even ended up with something worse than that, or just a straight donut, which I'm sure there were some people out there that did that. All right, so let's quickly talk about trades this week. So in defense, I've probably already touched on a couple. Like if you're looking for a cheapie, I think McKercher's still a right, although the next two games aren't great. I think my top trade target is probably Newman for the next couple. I'm happy like not only like Dacos or any of the others. The one that's a little bit left field and might end up in my trade plans is Holmes, because even though he hasn't scored great the last month, Saints and West Coast are the last two, and Saints have obviously been known to give up some big scores to halfbacks. He scored a 99 on the start of the year, so I think Holmes is probably like another sneaky cheap option to consider. In the mids, look, the ones that I want to get rid of from my side is LDU. I'm pretty much happy with everyone else, despite having bad games. The ones that I see as the best options is Neil, because he doesn't have tags the next couple of weeks and is playing for Brownlow, so I could see some decent high scores out of him. And then Dunkley, obviously, as well, has got the same fixture with I think a couple of nice matchups against sides that aren't that serious. So, yeah, beyond that, there's not a ton that I'm looking at that I'm loving. I have did have a very sneaky look at a cheap option in. I can't even see him. He's this far down the list. Rao, just because he's gone like 117 and 120, which are actually his two top scores for the year in the last two games, kind of flown under the radar a little bit. His time on ground has picked up from the couple of games before that were really poor. So I'm not sure if he was carrying something or whatnot, but D's against home and then Tigers for the last two. I could see some decent scores coming there, although if that Tigers game is Dusty's farewell and they bring out Dusty for it, maybe that's not a good thing for Gold Coast away. So anyway, in the ruck, I think it has to be Sherry and Roma, and if you don't have them, then yeah, that's sad times. But yeah, I think those two that you need to have. And then in the forward line, yes, we talked about Dillmore, and then for F6, I think this is still pretty hard. I was like trying to look at this. I'm like, I actually really don't know what the answer is here. Keys has actually been in a very good form. So 4 of his last 5 have been tons, apart from the 61. So maybe he's a decent option to loop. The problem is like Port and Swans don't inspire much confidence. Isaac returns, but just the 45 today and 2 tough matchups. I'm probably not looking his direction. McDonald's has been very good, and with 2 easy fixtures, I actually think he is like the option that I'm most interested in. He's been in some good form. I like what the Hawks are doing. They need to win these games for finals, so I can see good stuff coming out of him as well. I really don't mind him as an option. Power, I probably still wouldn't touch. Myers against Saints and West Coast, I think he's reasonable to consider as well. And even maybe Jeremy Cameron with it, which of course has the same fixture, but he's found a bit of form lately as well. Hogan's been good in Supercoach, just been good in fantasy. Yeah, so. But yeah, I wouldn't be touching that. So yeah, I think that's pretty tough. Pretty tough of what to do in the forward line here, but yeah, like you can obviously get Philippou in still, even though I don't think the matchup's particularly great. Geelong's good for mids, I guess, and then he's got a tough matchup the week after this, Blues. But otherwise, like yeah, Cam McDonald I think is kind of interesting. Keys has been good form, but I don't know if I love it, especially at the price. Yeah, otherwise just ride with Simpkin. It's a bit hard because got the Dogs this week, and you think the Dogs bounce back after what's just happened with that pretty embarrassing loss in a game they needed to win So I don't think that looks good, particularly good for um, uh, North. All right. So at this point, obviously we've got 4 trades left for the rest of the year, right? We need people are going to play 2 good games, and then we need to pick 2 people next week. So I'm still thinking about who are the players I want to get out just as much as who I want to get in. So I've talked about lots of players I want to get in. So like Neil, Newman, they're probably like my top 2 targets from for my side that I don't have. Players I want to get out, Richards, obviously, like big F you, buddy. LDU, I want to get out. That's probably a priority. And then I think Simpkin. So I'm kind of looking at my team like that. What are the priority trade outs? What are the priority trades in? And then I've got to figure out a way I can make those happen. Now, unfortunately, I think if I hit these trades, I'm not going to be able to do LDU and Richards to Neil and anyone worthwhile owning. So I can get Neil, and then I've got 780k, which is not a lot. It is enough for exactly Max Holmes. Okay, so this is option 1 for me. Neil and Max Holmes for Richards and LDU. Now, the other player I talked about, obviously, was Newman. And Newman, I think, becomes particularly interesting if Saad's injury is serious. Now, if I don't get him this week, I probably want him for the week after, just because it's got that Saints matchup. But let's say we start with Newman. That's option 1. And then that only leaves me 800k. And so really, what are my options here? For 800k, is it, can I have players that I can afford? Is that a button? Players I can afford. So we're back looking at Max Holmes or like Matty Rao. I don't think there's anyone else in here. Parrish is off for scans. Oh, Horn Francis, I guess, is interesting, but the fixture's not particularly friendly. If he had a friendly fixture, I'd be interested. So it could be like Holmes and Newman. And so that really makes me question, would I rather have Newman or would I rather have Neil? And I think I'd probably rather have Neil, right? So that's probably the trades I'm going to look at doing. It does mean that I am just straight fielding Simpkin and F6, which is a little bit of a risk. But I think, like, say he scores like a 65, 70. I'm really only missing out on 20, 30 points upside. And honestly, some of the replacements may only just match him or only beat him by like 5 or 10 points. Where I think if I look at something like Neil versus LDU, I genuinely feel there could be like 40 to 50 points in that trade alone this week. And like Holmes over Richards, I feel like could be 30, 40 points as well. Now, it would be classic for, trade out Richards and he goes well, but he's been very uninspiring the last 2 weeks. So I think let's then just lock it in. Let's get out Richards and LDU, and we will go Holmes. And honestly, I think the only hard part for me with the midfielder here is whether I want Dunkley over Neil. Because Dunkley's got better season average by about 8 points. Oh, look at these last 3 averages. Powell, right up there. Any Powell holders have been rewarded big time. Can't believe Walsh's last 3 is 106. He's been dreadful. Ooh, Roberts has been good. Is he the option over like a Richards? What's his price again? Hold on. Let's just figure this one out quickly. We've got Neil. So if it was Roberts coming, how much to leave me? 86k. No, I don't have anyone that would make that work. Okay, no, it's not gonna be Roberts. So I reckon I'm going Neil and Holmes. Down to 0 cash. Not a great spot to be in. Hit the old organized team button again. And then really the last thing for us to work out is some vice captaincy options. So Friday night, I think Merritt's probably likely to get tagged by JJ. Actually means he probably could be a trade out target for those that are in a better spot than me. What I probably should do is loop Merritt on the Friday night like that. And if he scores poorly, I'll have to reverse LDU in or something and I don't know, figure out something else instead of that trade. But anyway, so we'll start with that. But yeah, I think Goulden could be all right in this matchup, so he's probably a VC option this week. Gold Coast against Melbourne. So if you've got Noah Anderson or Gawn, I think those are vice captain options this week. GWS Freo, wouldn't be touching anyone there. Collingwood Brisbane, I think you can consider a Dunkley or a Neil type as a vice captaincy there as well. I think that is worthwhile considering. Port against Adelaide, so maybe like a Butters or a Rosie could be considered in that one. But at the same time, you have Marshall against the Cats, and I think we definitely want to have a look at that as a VC option there. And then we've got Cherry against English, and I feel like that's hard to look at. So I think we might be sticking with Rucks again this week, which is what we did last week. Boring, but they're both in phenomenal form. Hawks against Richmond, I wouldn't be looking at anyone there. And then West Coast Carlton, I also probably wouldn't be looking at anyone there. I don't trust Walsh. So really, like this combo here, Marshall and Sherry looks good. I could see Treloar and Bont doing well against North, but it's hard to not go with Sherry's form. Are there any other loopholes I should be setting up that would make sense? So in the back line, I've got Saints, and then I've got Port before it. Are there any... Like, Whitfield probably doesn't get tagged, right? And these games are at the same time, so it has to be someone before that. So, I mean, if you've got Dacos, you could loop, but I don't think it'll be a problem this week. So really for me, it's like Whitfield's like the only one I could consider loopholing, which is fine. Like, I guess he's very popular, like highly owned. Even though I don't think I think his score will count for me, but I guess like there's a chance of injury or something like that, so it could help if he gets injured early. I can play Evans and maybe get like 40 points on others that don't have cover, I guess. And then in the forward line, Simpkin plays after the North game. GWS plays early, so I can get one of Thomas or McMullen score, but McMullen didn't play right, and Thomas scored like half of nothing. But anyway, we'll line up something like that for the week ahead is the plan. So looping Whitfield with Evans, we will loop Merritt with a trade reversal of LDU back in. I don't know how we manage that actually if he scores poorly. It's probably something like hold Ed Richards and trade Dowling to Philippou, and instead of getting LDU to Neil, we have to get like LDU to Dunkley or a cheaper option. It'll be something like that. If Merritt goes, he have to go pretty poorly for me to want to reverse these trades. Because yeah, I mean he's got Lions last game, he's not going to get tagged. Okay, and then yeah, we'll loop Simpkin with actually sorry, the E needs to go on Thomas. Needs to go on Thomas. There we go, like that. All right, perfect. So that is the side for the week. We're going to do Marshall into Sherry. Talk through some good options. So, you know, have a look, consider, and yeah, join the Discord, play some AFLW, listen to the official podcast, and as always, I'll see you in the next one. Peace.